shadow on the wall that looks like a man. Lord, that lamp just moved on that stand. I got movement in the cellars, I got footsteps in the hall. There's no time to waste, I better make some calls. I gotta get ready, make everything right, 'cause all my rowdy friends are ghost hunting tonight. Hey, round up the team, let's get started. Hey, this is Brother Mike. There's a party and you're invited. We got the camera set, let's turn off these lights, 'cause all my rowdy friends are ghost hunting tonight. This old house has a long history. It should be real, real good for activity. And we got the house wired for sound and got motion alarms setting all around. Got a box full of batteries ready to go, and everyone's itching to start this show. Got our logo tees, driving black SUVs, and that one bald guy with a slick goatee. Hey, round up the team. Let's get started. Hey, this is Brother Mike. Well, there's a party and you're invited. We got the camera set, let's turn off these lights, 'cause all my rowdy friends are ghost hunting tonight. Hey, round up the team. Let's get started. Hey, this is your big brother Mike calling. There's a party and you're invited. We got the camera set, let's turn off these lights, 'cause all my rowdy friends are ghost hunting tonight. That's right. Go get 'em, boys.
Hi, everybody.
The Talking Head.
I'm the Talking Half Ahead. Welcome to PEMA TV.
Welcome to Friday, May 17th, 2013.
Man, it's just slipping away.
Yeah, there is that.
I think it picks up speed.
Well,
the more mature I become.
Once you hit the end of June, it's downhill. So yeah,
it goes faster.
Right.
Yeah, it's just simple physics.
It's like driving to New York takes longer than it does to drive back because we're going downhill.
Yeah, going from north to south.
Right.
Yeah.
Downhill.
Well, plus you're running into the way the Earth's turning, so you pick up some speed going that way.
Yeah, well, you see.
Yeah. And see, you guys learned something.
Be afraid.
Be very afraid. Just real quick before we get going tonight, if you want to come see Kim and I, Dakota Lawrence, Deanna Kelly Said, and several other speakers, movers and shakers of the paranormal, you can come to Shreveport, Louisiana. And
the weirder side of Shreveport.
The weirder side of Shreveport. And this is actually being sponsored by the city of Shreveport. That's to me, that's just totally cool that a city is getting involved. A municipality is getting involved like that.
Smaller towns do, but this is the first big city.
It's a big city. You can go to their website. Just Google Downtown Paranormal Fest in Shreveport. It'll take you to there.
Or just type in Shreveport Paranormal and it'll show up on Google.
Guests, speakers, vendors. They do have a tour. You all right over there?
Wait, this swallowed wrong.
I'm just going to let
Shut
that one go. You got the downtown, the speakers of fest, the vendors. There's going to be a ghost tours.
There's a bunch of ghost.
There's actually a ghost brunch.
There is. It's Sunday.
Yeah, it's like $30 a person, but you get a brunch and then the mansion tours, so you're going to multiple mansions. So that could be a value-added deal there.
Hey, and it's food. How can you go wrong?
It's brunch,
right?
And it's in Shreveport. It's got to have crawfish in it somewhere.
Well, what are those things? Those donut things?
Beignets.
Beignets. It's
Probably
Louisiana. You gotta have them.
Well, they would probably not be as good as the one in New Orleans. Those are like where it's.
They can't be any worse than St. Louis.
That's true. They might even have gooey butter cake. You never can tell.
Or Bananas Foster.
There you go.
Oh.
But tonight, we are joined by a very good friend of ours. He's actually a member of the Las Vegas Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Played lead guitar, I believe.
When they let him.
When they let him. I'm not even going to ask him about spandex or Aquanet. We're not even going to go there.
Please don't. I've seen the pictures.
But tonight we are joined by Bret Oldham, and Bret is a man of many talents and abilities.
Author, paranormal investigator, musician, and the keeper of Regina.
Yeah. Yeah, or she's his keeper. I'm not quite sure how that works.
But we love Regina, so it's okay.
Yeah.
As long as he plays nice, I don't have to post his older band pictures. Yeah.
How are you, Bret?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for bringing me on.
Oh, our pleasure, our pleasure.
Those pictures, a lot of people's been posting those lately, so it's kind of embarrassing, really. I see. Sometimes you look back. Most of my day was 80s and a little bit into the 90s, you know. So that was quite the generation for the big hair, and I never went the spandex route, though, in my defense. So
although the red pants are about as close as you can get there.
yeah, a lot of leather, black leather, red leather. You know, that was kind of my thing. But so you have seen the pictures. I thought you were kidding.
No, I actually remember I commented on it. I was like the first one to comment on it.
That's right.
But yeah, because I grew up the same time with the black leather pants and the skinny leather tie. You had to have the skinny leather tie, otherwise it wasn't an outfit.
So were you guys? And I have to ask just because I don't know, and I apologize for that. But are we talking Talking Heads? Are we talking like Pantera? Are we talking Van Halen? What kind of music are we talking about here, Bret?
Well, actually, I kind of, as the generation of the 80s went on, we did a lot of stuff. I had like a pop synth band that was sort of a Eurythmics kind of thing. That we did quite a bit of stuff with that band, and you know, played with Red Hot Chili Peppers and Greg Kihn Band and people like that, and did a lot of shows on our own, and you know, got a lot of radio airplay and everything. And then I was in a pretty popular copy band there for a lot of years, and that was more straight ahead rock. You know, we did the Van Halen stuff and the Zeppelin, Aerosmith, and that kind of thing like that. So I kind of covered it all.
Oh, and Sandy in the chat room says hello.
Oh, okay. That's probably the Sandy, the good buddy of mine.
Now, one thing a lot of people don't know is that you and your lovely wife also have your own paranormal team.
Yeah, we're just a husband and wife team. We're just a small team, and we sometimes do investigations on our own. We do a lot of ITC work, and you know, we'll go and do just spirit box sessions for people. And then we work with other people. In fact, Sandy in the chat room is one of them, Sandy Nichols. He runs the Alien Research Group out of Thompson Station, and we'll go down to Alabama. We work with some people down there, and you know, sometimes whenever we get invited, depending on who it is and what the situation is, we'll go on that. So we kind of work everywhere from with other groups. Sometimes we'll come in and kind of freelance like that mostly, and then we'll just do stuff on our own.
And this was unbeknownst to us. You've been doing a lot of work. I didn't know that had been doing this much work in the under the ufology umbrella. I didn't know it had been that big a part of what you had done. Now it's just because I think we had never actually got that far into a conversation.
Well, we only tend to meet at
conventions.
Conventions, yeah.
Yeah, and that's more, you know, along the lines of the ghost work we do, but yeah, I'm actually an alien abductee, and that's what got me into the paranormal to begin with, and I've been silent about it for well over 20 years, and it just got to the point where I just felt the time was right to come out with what I knew, and I just realized that I wasn't going to care about the embarrassment of it or the ridicule or that kind of thing. I felt it was important to let people know that this is like a real thing that's going on. It happens to people from all walks of life, and I happen to have quite a few memories of what happened to me, and I decided to write a book about it. And And actually, Sandy Nichols was one of the people who he's also had these experiences, and he wrote a book, I guess maybe 10 years ago about his experiences, and he kind of coaxed me into doing it. And he's like, you really need to, so much, and it's really important. And then Gina was really instrumental in it. But I kept so secret about it that even the first 2 years that Gina and I were married, she didn't even know about it. She obviously, we had all the paranormal stuff in common, and we're doing all that. But I just kept it secret from everybody, and I kept having these nightmares and stuff. And after a couple of years of it, I was having 2 or 3 of them a month, most of which goes back to the very first experience I had when I was 5 years old and was first taken in a farmhouse in southern Illinois. And between that, and I do have like physical marks on my body from the experiences. I've got several unexplained scars across my spine. I've got 2 big puncture marks on my side. And she was obviously questioned those, and I just would try to change the subject mostly. But eventually, she knew enough about the UFO research as well, and all the signs and symptoms and everything that goes along with people that have had these experiences. And she kind of confronted me, and I admitted to her what was going on. And after I did that and got that out on the table, it just got to the point where I just felt I wanted to write about it. And it took me 2 years to write the book. Not too many people knew I was writing a book about it. I couldn't do it all at one time because I would get too depressed from writing the book. It was really bringing back a lot of stuff that I didn't want to have to relive again, because if you do experience these kind of things, I mean, it does leave a psychological damage to you. And that's another reason I'm coming out with the book and coming out with my story, because I did a lot of media stuff in the paranormal and pretty well respected in the field. And I knew I had a chance to continue that, just like in the case with you guys tonight, to talk about the abduction scenario. And I do think it overlaps into the paranormal, and maybe we can talk about that a little bit later. But so I wrote the book Children of the Greys. It just came out a few weeks ago. I've got some real top ufologists involved as contributors. Dr. Leo Sprinkle wrote the foreword. He's like a legend in the UFO field. I mean, he's a psychologist, PhD. He's been studying the phenomena for over 50 years, and he's been on boards with like J. Allen Hynek and Carl Sagan, and he's did all kinds of national television and everything. And he read the manuscript and jumped right on board with it, wrote the foreword for me. And then we got Brad Steiger as, probably if there is such a thing, an expert in the paranormal field, I'd say it would be Brad Steiger. And Gina and I had contributed a couple articles to one of his books recently, and he found out what I was doing, and he agreed to contribute to it. And then Brent Rains from Alternate Perceptions magazine, and he's an author himself of Visitors from Hidden Realms, and he's probably got over 40 years experience in the field, and he's been real helpful, real instrumental in helping bring this to light, what I've been doing. And then I've got Kathleen Martin, who is, are you guys familiar with the Betty and Barney Hill famous abduction case in the 60s?
I'm not.
Well, they were an interracial couple. They were one of the first abduction cases that ever happened, and it got a lot of publicity, not only from what happened to them, but also the fact that they were an interracial couple in the 60s. And there's been several books written about it. And they've been on all kinds of. There was a movie about it, about their case, and they're one of the most famous cases, abduction cases, and one of the first ones that really went to national prominence. But their niece, her name's Kathleen Martin. Now she's wrote the book Captured with Stanton Friedman, and she's been doing abduction research for a couple of decades now, and she contributed to it. And then Sandy Nichols also contributed a nice article to it. So I've got some great people that that contributed to it. I wanted to give like a well-rounded view of this phenomenon, and and kind of what some of these top ufologists thought was the agenda. And not even just in my experiences are with the typical grays that the media kind of, you see all over the media, but I kind of left it open for them just to generalize what they did believe about even if they did believe that aliens were visiting us, and what would be the possible agenda or reason for them to do that, and got a real good cross section between all of them. So it's the book chronicles my first experience starting at age 5, and really goes up to almost present day, and it runs the gamut from all kinds of things that I remember and experiments that has been done on me. There's the reason for the title of Children of the Greys is there was an experience that was recently featured. Gina and I did a new television show that's on Destination America, one of the Discovery Channel networks. It's called Monsters and Mysteries in America. It just came out this year, and we flew out to Vegas and did an episode of that. And they featured my abduction cases, and one of the cases that was been one of the most traumatic for me happened in the late 80s, and I was living in Las Vegas. And I was living with my girlfriend at the time, and she got pregnant, and everything was going fine. She was just about a week shy of being 4 months pregnant. And in the middle of the night, we were awakened with a loud bang, and it turned out to be a typewriter that she had sitting on a little stand in the bedroom, and it had gotten knocked off. But when we opened our eyes, both of us at the same time, she saw 3 grays and I saw 4, because one of them was out of her sight because it was back in an area of the room that she couldn't see. And we were both taken at the same time, and they actually took the fetus from her at that time and forced me to watch it as it was happening. It was the most of the grays that I'd ever seen at one time in a room. They had us on 2 separate, like, platform type tables, and I tried not to watch it. I go in very in depth about this in the book. Of course, she was screaming, begging them not to do it. And when they returned us, the next morning, we woke up and noticed blood. A little bit of blood on the bed, and she got up and went to the bathroom, and she kind of called out from the bathroom to me that I better call the doctor real quick because she's bleeding. And I did, and then they said to come on in, and we were only about 15 minutes away from the doctor's office, and we got in there, and he sent her right across the street to the hospital immediately. And he came out, he said, look, it seems like it's a possible miscarriage. But he went in there and he said they do a procedure called a D&C where they clean out the womb after something like that. So he came out of the procedure, and my mom and actually her mom had showed up at the hospital by that time. And he says, well, I've never seen anything like this. He said, I just checked this woman. I believe at the time it was less than a week, maybe 4 to 5 days before that, she had been into his office. And he says, it's like this woman was never pregnant. He goes, there's no tissue, there's nothing, as the womb's already been cleaned. He goes, I can't explain it. I don't know. I don't understand this at all. And this is a guy, a very experienced doctor. So they featured that on the episode, and that was a case where I had the experience along with somebody else. And when they had the television show, I hadn't spoke to her in at least 15 years. And I had contacted her. I did find her through Facebook, and only thing I'd ask her is she remembered it, and she said she did, and she said she still has nightmares about it and still sleeps with the light on, and always been afraid since then that they were going to come back. But that was about it. I had no idea how much of the event that she remembered until and they interviewed us completely at different times and different locations. So I didn't even know what she had said until the show aired. And the producer had just told me that she backed up my story 100%. So it was quite remarkable that after all those years and stuff, I mean, she had pretty much the exact same memories of it that I did, but probably around 3 years, between 3 and 4 years after that, on another time that I was taken, two small grays had walked me into an area, a really large area that was kind of dimly lit, which was unusual, and it was a ramp, about a 75-foot long ramp that I could see down. There was a lit opening, and one of the things that's on these crafts that's different than us, among many things, but one of the things that you notice right away is the light. Their lighting systems is completely different than us. The whole color of it. It has the ability to not go into another room. I mean, they seem to be able to control light, and the room was really brightly lit where this opening was, but yet the light wasn't filtering into the room that I was in. And out of that light, well, the two grays left me, and out of that light, I saw a figure start walking up the ramp, this little ramp toward me, and noticed that it was a hybrid, what I perceived to be a hybrid female, and she was carrying another hybrid, a small child, which she then presented to me and wanted me to interact with it. And I resisted at first, didn't want nothing to do with it, and she kept insisting that and this is all telepathically, they do not communicate verbally. And finally I kind of kneeled down and kind of just started playing with the child a little bit, and just to be nice, I guess. And I really wasn't afraid of the hybrid, either one of them.
Right.
And I didn't really want for it to happen, but I really sort of bonded with the child. And she was just looking at me. She looked so strange. It was almost alarming, or shocking, I guess would be the better word. But at the same time, there was something in her eyes that, there was like a softness in her eyes at the same time. And just she didn't communicate with me. But just the way she was looking at me, and I just kind of did just like we would do here, if you come across a child of that age, and just, was trying to make small talk with her basically, and I didn't get anything back from her, but she seemed to kind of be enjoying being around me. And then after a few minutes of that, it seems like they got what they wanted, and the hybrid lady took her back and just turned around and took off down the ramp with her, and so that's where the title of the book actually came from, because it really affected me to kind of interact with this child. Now, whether or not the child was actually mine, I always suspected that maybe it was a result of the fetus they had taken from my girlfriend that time, but it could have been something completely different. I don't really have any way of knowing, but they never showed it to me again. I never got to meet it again. I was always hoping on subsequent abductions that maybe I would, even as it got older, that they would bring her to me again, and it's never happened yet. But I always knew, like then, that it made such a mark on me that if I ever did reveal this to the public, that the book would be about that, about their hybrid programs, and I wanted her on the cover of the book, and that's what it is. It's my brother Jeffrey Oldham. He's a fantastic artist. He's won a lot of awards out of Las Vegas, and I kind of went to him. I'm good at music, but I can't hardly draw stick figures, and I wanted it to be as realistic as I could possibly get it, to present to the public like what these children actually look like, because they're not the insect-looking, hideous-looking, big-eyed things that the media presents that we see in the public as far as what the actual grays look like. And they're getting very, very close in their DNA manipulation to I think they're getting real close to actually blending in with our society. But and he nailed it. I mean, I described it as best that I could, and we kind of toyed around back and forth a few times, and the little girl that's on the cover is very, very close to the little child that was presented to me.
Wow.
So when do your good friends get a copy of this book?
No. Well.
Sorry, I had to go there.
Yeah. Well, I should have tried to get you guys one before the interview, actually, but yeah, I mean, it's available right now. There's even ebooks available. I just got it formatted and up, so it's available as a Kindle book on Amazon, and the print version's on Amazon as well. And it's causing quite a reaction. I've had a lot of people in just a short amount of time. I've been contacted from both sides of the country, from people, experiencers that have had either a similar experience as mine or something in the ballpark of that, and same situation where they have not been able to talk to anybody about it. They don't know where to turn. I mean, one of them was a policeman in New York, and so you could imagine, the consequences of what he was afraid of that might happen if he talked about it to anybody. And he happened to see us on the television show and looked me up from that. And I talked to him for 2 hours on the phone one day, trying to help the guy, because so many people, to suffer in silence from this happening to you. I mean, I'm just barely scratching the surface of the amount of things that I've been subjected to, and to not being able to tell anybody about it. And you guys know, from the ghost stuff, that even that can elicit a certain amount of ridicule. And I mean, I don't know about you guys, but Gina and I have been told right to our face we're going to hell because we try to help the spirit world. So it can get pretty deep even along those lines. And so, but when you're talking about this, I mean, there's a lot of people that's just out there hiding and suffering in silence, just like I did for a lot of years. And you suffer from depression from this. A lot of people, it comes out in alcoholism and drug abuse and that kind of thing. And some people don't even realize that that's the root cause of it. This is happening on a grand scale. I mean, it's happening in countries. I've been contacted from people in Europe, and it's happening on just a much larger scale than people are aware of. And the main thing, as far as the Greys, that I've learned is their interest in us. There's a certain sense of desperation in what they're doing, because they're absolutely creating a hybrid race. There's no doubt about it. And I believe that their attraction to the humans, our species, is it's certainly not for intellect. We're a physical specimen that they admire. They are very frail creatures. Their mental power is beyond anything you could possibly imagine. And whatever they're going to want you to do, you're going to do. There's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. But they're very frail physically, and so they're attracted to us for that aspect of it. The other aspects is our emotional makeup. They seem to be completely devoid of emotions. And I'd like to bring something up for people that aren't aware. Everybody talks about the little 3 to 4 feet tall Greys, and that's just one of them. There's taller ones that are in charge of everything. The small Greys that you see in the media and stuff all the time are pretty much like from what I've witnessed and experienced, and it's been many times, they're pretty much like the worker base, and I really suspect that they are probably made by the taller ones. I mean, I would not be surprised if they're not like biological robots. They all look very similar. They all act very similar. They seem to be all logic based on everything they do. Everything's matter of fact. The taller ones have carried on conversations with me. That was one of the first things that they did when I was taken at 5 years old. They took me to a taller one, and he was the one that kept telling me that he was my friend and that he wasn't going to hurt me, and trying to be like the fatherly or grandfatherly figure to a child and win your trust over. And oddly enough, it's kind of been like that all through my life. I mean, I've never suffered at his hands. He may have been the one, or others like him, who directed the stuff to be done, but they're never the ones doing it. It's always the small ones, at least in my case. So, you know, there is a difference between the two. I mean, it's not just the small little guys all the time that are doing these things. They seem to be under control of a taller race. Maybe, I mean, they're pretty close to average size, like we are. You know, maybe not quite as tall as we are. But I mean, I've heard reports of some people talking about them in that regard. But they're extremely interested in human sexuality and our emotional makeup, and pretty much everything that they subject you to is along the lines of that.
Wow.
Well, you're overly tall anyway, so you can't judge them by how tall you are.
Well, that's true. Yeah, I'm almost 6'4", so you know they're all really small to me. But
Do you think that this is, hopefully this doesn't sound like a silly question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you think they have an almost insect colony-like hierarchy?
well, they do seem to have like like the hive mentality.
Right.
Yeah, with the small ones. And if you do anything that's illogical, they really don't seem to know how to react. And most of the time, they have you under such mental control that I don't think they feel that they're in any kind of danger. They've been taking me for so long that I've kind of gave up to even try to do anything to them. I mean, even the story that I told you of the experience that happened with the fetus, that was probably the most angry I had ever been with them at that time. And the only thing that I could move during that event was my head, and I actually turned it away to keep from watching that. And one came up by my head and put his hand on my head and moved my head over to the side so that I would be forced to watch it. And I think now, like looking back on it, that they wanted to gauge my emotional reaction to that, because they try to elicit like whatever kind of emotion out of you that they can, and they'll put you in different circumstances in order to do that. It's just all science to them, but it's cruel. I mean, it's cruel to us that's experiencing it. So, but at that time, I mean, if I could have, I would have. I mean, I would have killed them. There's just no doubt about it. And I would have just killed every single one of them. I was that angry. But now I'm to the point that I try my best to just cooperate, and because I know there's just nothing I can do about it. The only time that I ever was able to kind of break their hold on me, they take me like 95% of the time when I blacked out. A lot of times I don't see them here. I just wake up and I'm there. But there's been times that I've seen them in my room in different places as well, but before they take me. But there's an intake room is what I call it, just an area that I end up in pretty close, almost the same time. And it's just sort of like, that's like the little brief going over things physically before the real fun starts, you know. I mean, that's before they're going to do whatever they're going to do to you for that particular time. And at that, one of the times I started studying I guess I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but what happened to me is when it first started happening when I was very small, they let me remember it. I mean, and I remember, you know, my mom would say I was talking about my little friends and the little men, you know, that they said they were my friends, and they telling her how they were coming to get me and all this stuff. And we lived out in the country in this little farmhouse, and I wasn't exposed to anything that would have triggered that kind of thing in my imagination. I didn't know what aliens were. You know, we just had some little black and white TV. I didn't have comic books. You know, we were pretty poor. I mean, I didn't have anything. And but I remember like seeing The Wizard of Oz for the first time, and when the flying monkeys came on the screen, I just went into hysterics because it just triggered something in my subconscious. You know, they were abducting. They were obviously taking, you know, Dorothy and Toto, and they were small, and it just obviously reminded me of the Greys. And it seemed like after that, Like they must have known that I had that kind of reaction to it or something, but it was soon after that that they blocked my memories, and I suspected stuff off and on because I was just drawn from then on out into everything that was to do with the paranormal and everything to do with anything in space and aliens, and I really didn't know why the attraction was, but it wasn't until I was in my 20s I started having anxiety attacks, absolutely for no reason. And when you're like a musician, having anxiety attacks is not a good thing. You know, you got to go on stage and perform. And I'd been an athlete when I was younger, so I've been in front of people like forever. I'm not the type of person that normally would start having anxiety attacks, and I had to get therapy. And when I got therapy, that's when all this started coming out. And the real reason to cause the anxiety attacks was all these suppressed memories of all this stuff that had happened to me all those years. And then after that, they couldn't block the memories as easily, and even to this day, they can't block them. And the older I get, the stronger mentally I get, the harder time that they have. But once I realized what was happening to me and had been happening to me, then I really dedicated myself to, in a way, like defeating them, even though I know now it's not possible. But I started, through the therapist and stuff, he was teaching me different meditation techniques and relaxation techniques, but he also started teaching me like mind control, self-mind control, mental techniques. And I was really training my mind, and I even took some like self-hypnosis things and to strengthen my mind, and it did actually work like one time. And I remember being on the intake table, and I knew that they didn't have control of me. I knew I could feel it. Like I wasn't like numb from the neck down and all this kind of stuff. And I waited. There was 3 of them in the room at that time, and 2 of them were down at the end of the table on the left side, kind of standing together, and another one was coming around the right side. And one of the things that still haunts me to this day is like you just don't want to look in their eyes. I mean, I don't. I mean, it's just it's just something that I just try to avoid, even with the tall ones. And he started to lean over me, and I jumped up. Like they had no control of me. I was able to block it, and I just kind of raised up and I screamed, and he steps back, and the other 2 that was into the table, they stepped back, and pretty soon all 3 of them were kind of standing together up against the wall. And just totally confused. I don't think they were really afraid because they seemed to be pretty devoid of emotion, but it goes back to the logic thing. I mean, they seemed just utterly confused as to what to do because I had reacted illogically. And that was just the greatest feeling for me. It was the only time, all the times that these things have happened to me, that I had any kind of control or any kind of power over them. It didn't last long because, they immediately regained control of me. But it was like the best feeling ever to be able to, under where they're at, to have that kind of, it's something as simple as that. I mean, that's how traumatic these things are to the people that are experiencing, because you absolutely have no control whatsoever of what they're doing, how they're going to do it, when they're going to, nothing. You're nothing but, it feels like a lab rat. And it does play with your self-worth. I mean, once you start remembering these things and you come back into this existence, it becomes a lot to deal with, and you have to empower yourself here and not become a victim to it. And and that's the things I'm beginning to tell people now that's had these experiences. Some people remember more than others. Some people just maybe suspect it, like I did at certain times in my life. Things would happen, and like I have. When these scars, when they first started coming on my body, and couldn't explain it. And so you sort of suspect it, but you don't really want to accept it. And so that's what I'm trying to, the other experiences of abductees that I've talked to, that's one of the things I'm trying to encourage them to go ahead. And I think there is a big shift right now going on, and people are realizing, like, hey, the odds are, I mean, they just keep discovering Earth-like planets. It doesn't even have to be an Earth-like planet, but, they know, I mean, you just can't deny there's, like, just in our galaxy alone. And the thing is, it might not even be other interplanetary. It could very well just be dimensional. It could be both. So, I mean, they're definitely, in my case, in my theory, I firmly believe that they're doing this interdimensionally. I've witnessed it recently. I mean, there's like a couple of years ago. I hear tap 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 like on the side of my side of the bed, and you know, you guys know from doing ghost work. You know, sometimes you bring the stuff home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've done that frequently, and we've had a lot of visitors, and because just comes with the territory. So that was the first thing that came into my mind when I heard it. I didn't open my eyes immediately because I was kind of wanting to see what was going to happen, and I thought it was something from spirit realm, not aliens. And they did it again. It was like tapping on the bed, like purposely seemed to be wanting to wake me up. So then I realized, okay, you know, this has got to be something we brought home. Let me see what they want. And so I opened my eyes. I was laying on my side, like away from Gina, and when I opened my eyes, it was the Greys, and they were standing right on the edge of my bed. 3 of them just lined up down the side, and immediately I kind of went into panic mode, because basically, not for myself, because I don't like it. I don't ever want it to happen, but I was more afraid for Gina, and I really wanted to try to wake her, and I started to scream, and I couldn't. You know, I could do it in my head, but I couldn't get it to verbalize. And I was wide awake, and I knew that they were getting ready to take me. I just didn't want them to take her also. But on the bedroom wall that I was facing, I actually could see what looked like, I only could describe like mirage looking, like if you see a water mirage, that kind of texture. And there was it was oval shaped, and it was a sort of a white mist around the top of it. And through that, I could see into their craft, and I could actually see another Gray in the craft. So it was definitely a dimensional portal. I mean, just right there. And I'm sure right before, I don't remember going through the actual portal, but I screamed. I was still trying to scream in my head, and the last thing I remember it actually started coming out was no, because I was basically telling him, don't take her, and I started it in the bedroom and finished the word no on the craft. It was that quick. And I was screaming out loud at that time, on the last time. So, however they're doing it is obviously way beyond our comprehension of physics, but, you know, you're talking an advanced race that could be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years past where we're at. So, who knows the type of things that they're capable of. But it's definitely dimensional. It fits into the paranormal big time, because one of the things I've found, and I wrote about extensively in the book, is the connection to the paranormal. Myself, I've always been clairaudient when I was a kid. After these events started happening to me, and of course when I was a child I was scared out of my mind, because I just had ghost activity continually, no matter where we moved. My parents eventually got into the oil field business, and wherever there was oil we moved, so we moved a lot. And it didn't matter where we were at, what house we lived in, there was I was always a victim to some kind of haunting, and I would hear them. And I used it when I was early on. I would tell my parents, and of course, you know, I would get the no, you didn't hear a lady talking to you, you know, go to bed, you know, that kind of thing. But it got to the point, I mean, they were appearing they were at one time actually got in bed with me, and breathing on my head. I mean, it went on and on, and I spent my childhood just like scared out of my mind, because all these spirits kept coming to me, and I had no idea why. Of course, as I got older, I started embracing it and understanding it. But what I found out is this is very common in abductees. And, you know, I mean, it's a thing like Gina and I can go into an investigation with other people and in the same place, and I'm holding a recorder. I'm walking out with 4 times more EVPs than anybody we're with.
Right.
And what I believe happens is the dimensional shift that happens to you when you're taken, it seems to increase the vibrational rate of the abductee's energy. And I think the more times you're taken, the more it happens. And even Brent Rains, you know, he's did this study for a long time, and he told me he never got an EVP in his life until he started working with me and Gina, and now he gets loads of them. And I was like, well, what do you think that is? And he's like, well, have you ever heard of seeding? And I'm like, no. And he said that he's researched it, and he said if you're around somebody with a high psychic awareness, and I don't claim to be psychic, but I do have a lot of experiences like that. I just call it psychic awareness, you know, but I know that I do have a very high energy rate, and I mean, I do Reiki, and when I got my first attunement, the guy's like, are you sure you've never had an attunement before? I'm like, why do you say that? And he's like, because, you know, I can feel it coming out of your body. And so, you know, there's something to it, but Brent thinks that, you know, when your energy level gets that high, you can actually start seeding other people from it. You know, they sort of feed off that same energy, and then it starts working for them. And I found this time and time again. I've met so many people, and actually a couple of mediums. And you guys know, like, you know, there's people that's the real deal, and there's people that's not.
Right.
And I'm sure, you know, as you guys are experienced, that as you do this and do it for the number of years we all have, that you start to learn pretty quickly how to pick up on that, and me as well. So, and I'm talking people that I've had genuine belief that they're the real deal, and only to find out that they are abductees. And that's where they also have felt. I'll give you a really, as Brad Steiger told me recently, he said there's no such thing as coincidences, but this is a strange story. I won't call it a coincidence, but a lady bought my book, and she lives in Dixon, just outside of Nashville, and she had contacted my friend Sandy Nichols. We were going to have a spirit box session at Sandy's house. And he had met her a year before at a metaphysical convention they have here, and got to talking to her and stuff, and made friends with her, and they kind of kept in contact. I didn't know anything about her, and he invited her to have a spirit box session, and she says, "Oh, yeah, that's great." She goes, "I want to talk to you about this new book I just got called Children of the Greys." And he says, "Oh, I didn't know you got the book. Well, you're in luck because the author of that book's going to be here." And so she was like, "Wow, what's the chances of that?" So she shows up. I meet her there, and got to talking to her. And she does energy work. She does Reiki as well, but she is also a medium. And once I got to talking to her, she says, "Well, I was really interested in your book because when I saw the cover, I was instantly drawn to it because I've seen a child very similar like that." Turns out she's had abduction experiences since she was a child also. So it also turns out that she lived in the same suburb of Las Vegas that I did up until about 8 years ago when I left. So, just a lot of things that kind of tied in together, and it's one of those things, maybe certain people come into your life you're just supposed to meet, but her experiences were even worse than mine as a child. I mean, I got kind of to the point where I quit talking about my ghost experiences because nobody, I was like, why tell anybody? They just tell me to go to bed anyway, and a lot of it, how religion can kind of play into it, and they don't want their kid telling them that they're seeing spirits and stuff, because then the devil starts coming into the play, and and if people think the devil starts getting involved, well, then it gets real serious. So it's easier just to tell your kid to go to bed and that you're not seeing the ghost. In her case, she was talking about she was having the same type of paranormal experiences that tied in with their abduction experiences, except that she told her parents about when she was 12, 13, right in there, and they put her in an institution. So, that's how serious that it can get, and this is what keeps people a lot of times from coming out.
Bret, I have to ask you this. Do you think that the Greys, and I'm kind of doing this from the cumulative interviews that we've done with other ufologists and other people that have had encounters, do you think they kind of traded their passion and their emotions for technology? Is that a generalization that's worth?
I agree with that. It seems like that their technology is so advanced, they relied on it so much that I think over the generations that they probably lost it. I think there's a lot of validity to that.
And unfortunately, the human race, we're just swelling. We're not getting thinner.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. As we rely on technology. I can only assume you're planning. Are you going to plan on doing any kind of book signings or anything with any of this?
Yeah, I'm just getting started on all that. I'm putting a presentation together. I'm wanting to. I've got invited already for a couple things to speak publicly about it. I spoke at briefly MUFON here in Tennessee, and I've talked to Rich Hoffman, the state director down in Alabama, MUFON, to come down there and talk to his group, and so I will start doing some public speaking about it too. And right now I'm just doing my best to get the word out that the book is available, because I do think I go into I think I'm one of the few people that actually cover like the paranormal connection to it, and a lot of, like Brent Rains had told me that he has found that too in his research over the years. Even going back to the Betty and Barney Hill case I talked about earlier, after they claim to only have one event, and after that one event that they started having paranormal activity in their house, so which wasn't there before. So there is a definite connection with that, and it could just be all dimensional. It could be something to do with that as well. We've even started doing some spirit box experiments with it. Even Tesla, claimed that he was receiving what he believed to be alien signals. He didn't say voices, but he said signals, and of course he was the first person to ever publicly claim that he was getting voices through radio, and so and I believe that he thought it had something to do with the dimensional as well. So, and there's some kind of definite connection with that.
Yeah, Tesla's voices. That was when he was in a race with Thomas Edison, I believe, to invent the radio. So there was nobody else broadcasting.
Yeah.
There's no way that anybody could.
They heard. That's right.
Yeah. Bret, you've blown me away. This is a side of you I'm blown away. Kudos to you for being brave enough to come and share this.
Thank you, Eric.
That's amazing. And you don't have to worry about us. I got your back, and you don't have to worry about somebody making fun of you, because I got your back on that.
Yeah, I got your back too. I may be little, but I bite.
Yeah, she hits him in the ankles. Do you think that people are going to start finally coming to a realization that paranormal actually means just outside the normal, outside the everyday go to 7-Eleven, go to work, come home reality?
I hope so.
Those of us in it know that.
Yeah.
It's everybody outside who thinks they're all separate little entities, all to themselves.
Well, we've taken a report. It can go into cryptozoology, because we've taken. This will give you an example. We had a report that from Tennessee. Actually, we didn't personally take it. Brent Rains took it and told us about it. But there was a gentleman that claimed to witness a craft which he perceived to be a alien or spacecraft, land in a field, and I believe he was out hunting. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that was the deal. And he saw, it was daylight, and he saw the craft come down, and he swore up and down that a Bigfoot came out of the craft, walked around a little bit, and got back in and left. And, you know, some people would hear that and be like, oh, yeah, well, Bigfoot's flying the craft. But I don't think it's that at all. I mean, in my opinion, it would be like the same thing that we would do if we go to another planet. We're gonna check out every species that's there. Well, if there's a species that possibly shares human DNA, and you could get real complicated with this and go back to Anunnaki and all that stuff, and you know that's a whole other show. But you know, I'm not surprised by that at all. That they had a specimen that they could be possibly abducting, and it might not be the Greys. It could be some other race that's visiting our planet. But there's a lot of stuff that's going on that shouldn't be so easily dismissed as comical or something like that.
Well, isn't it possible that being trans-dimensional, like most of everything in the paranormal is, that maybe Bigfoot are just another form of alien?
That's another theory that's out there.
I mean, you can't dismiss it. I mean, obviously you can't prove it right this minute. But I mean, that would make total sense if they're just a symbiotic race with whatever race was driving the ship. It would make sense that if you're going to send in a reconnaissance team, that you get the hide and seek world champions for
there you go
3,000 years running. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, the truth's stranger than fiction. You know, I've been saying that a lot lately, and it really is.
Yeah.
And a lot of this stuff overlaps, and it's a shame that so many people in the paranormal is just, you know, strictly this, and everything's like categorized, and there's a lot of overlapping in the paranormal world that really can open up some new insights to people that's willing to take a look at it.
Yeah, isn't that strange how we've run across those people? You know, yeah, ghosts are real. They're the spirits of, you know, my dead Aunt Ethel, but that bull crap about Bigfoot and UFOs. Who come up with that hooey? Blah blah blah. I mean, but we've run across those people.
Oh yeah. There's no doubt they're everywhere. You know, and that's a shame, because I think that's the kind of people that's missing out on the big picture.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's what we try to do here. There is a question in the chat room from Bunker Bunny, and I think Bunker Bunny is actually Shirley. I believe that's who that said that was earlier.
It's Shirley or Sandy. It's one of the two.
One of the two. They want to know if you could talk a little bit about implants.
Well, you know, that's funny, because there was just a recent article that I saw maybe 2 days ago. It was some scientific journal, and they were talking about the implants that we have now. And I posted it on. I have a Facebook page for Children of the Greys. It's just, you know, facebook.com Children of the Greys, and I set it up for abductees and different experiencers or anybody interested in the phenomenon to have a place to go for information and post about their experiences and stuff. And I posted it there for sure if anybody's interested to see it. But and it was showing these tiny little implants. I don't know any other word to use for it. And you could they were talking about medical purposes for them, like, you know, they could scan your stomach. You swallow these things in a pill, and all these various uses for them. There was one that people could swallow, and it would notify the doctor. It would stay in your stomach, and it would notify the doctor if you took your medicine on time, like you were supposed to. So, you know, you can just imagine like where this could all go, and some of it might not be good, but so we got this technology like now, that's to this point where we're starting to monitor all this medical stuff with these tiny little implants. And I found it funny, because a lot of times people would scoff at this idea that, oh, aliens are implanting you and finding you wherever you go and da-da-da. And I'm like, come on, you know, we've got it. Now we've got it. I knew with nanotechnology that we hadn't been that far away from it for the last several years. But now they're actually coming out with, they're going to be releasing this to the public. I think they said next year. So, and who knows where it's going to go from there. But yeah, they definitely, my first implant was in the nasal cavity. I remember them putting it in, and I suffered severe nosebleeds off and on for years. They would go in spurts. but I went to the doctor, couldn't find anything wrong, and I would just get nosebleeds, like just the most. There's never a good time to have a nosebleed, but you know, I mean, in the most inopportune times. And then finally, they must have removed it, must have realized like it's causing this kind of problem for me. Maybe didn't want to bring attention to it, or at risk that it possibly could be found. But and I think right now that, and it's just a gut feeling that it's behind my left ear. I do have an odd bump back there that no reason for it, but it's just I'm just guessing at that right now by just my own gut instinct that that's where it's at. But they definitely tag everybody, and to the degree I really think that it could be just tune into us anytime that they want. I mean, we're tagging wildlife, ocean animals, and everything ourselves, you know, and tagging them. So, but that's a definite thing, at least with the Greys. And it doesn't matter where you go, they're going to find you, and they're going to take you when they want you. But I think that it's to the point with them that they can even tap into what your conscious thoughts are, because a lot of the stuff that they do mentally has to do with stuff that's locked away in your memories and your subconscious. I'll give you a brief little case in point. Like one of the cruelest, well, they did this to me twice, and I caught on to it. But I should have been smart enough to catch on to it the first time, but by the third time, I didn't go for it. But kind of the second time, I sort of went for it. But I was taken to a relatively large room, not real big, but by their standards, and it was just barren. There was nothing in there. And they walked me in, and on the left side, as I was facing the door that they brought me into, they turned me around and like faced the door, the entryway, I should call it, and there was like a row of windows, and there were several of them standing out there, and I was just standing there. I couldn't figure out what was going. There was no equipment, nothing. But all of a sudden, instantaneously, I'm standing outside in a bright sunny day, and with all the birds, you know, all the physical sensations of being somewhere just in a nice sunny day, and I hear a dog, and I turn around, and it's a dog that I had for 16 years, a little black poodle that we had named Sam, and who had died before this. And I just instantly started. I was so happy to see him. I mean, it was like a natural thing to do. I mean, I completely forgot where I was at, what was happening, or anything, because it was all so real. And after a few minutes of playing with my dog, and you know, he seemed so real, and he was so happy to see me, and all of a sudden, just instantly, it all disappeared. And it was basically one of their emotion experiments, as I call them, where they wanted to monitor my emotions at, once again, having an experience with a dog that I loved for 16 years. And they succeeded. I mean, but they had to have went into my subconscious and pulled those memories out and used that to create this, whether they created it in my mind or they created it in that room, I don't know. But in my mind, what I saw and what I felt and experienced was 100% real.
Well, yeah, but if they can create if they've been able to master wormhole creation and use, creating the Star Trek version of the holodeck,
that's what it would remind you of.
That's not a big step, I don't think.
Yeah, because it was just instantaneous there and instantaneous not there. And you know, it didn't seem like it lasted for very long, but they were definitely at the windows monitoring what was going on. So it goes back to, once again, whatever emotion that they're going to try to elicit from you, they're going to go into your subconscious mind and pull that memory out and use it, whether it's fear, joy, you know, whatever it is. and they will set these things up in order to do that.
Yeah. Wow.
So, you know, and to me, that was a cruel thing to do. You know, I mean, especially if you're an animal lover, and you know, when it's a hard thing to let them go, and to have something so real like that. You know, they tried it a second time, and they used my stepdad, but they made a few mistakes on that one, and I was able to recognize about halfway through it, and I started actually telling him, "You're not real." You know, and once they realized that I realized what they were doing, it ended.
No, we can completely understand where you're coming from. We have a little black poodle who's about to turn 18.
Oh wow! Yeah, you know, it's just a strong emotional attachment, and it felt so real, and it just made me so happy to see him again, and he was more like that he was when he was younger, you know, his actions and stuff, and he was so happy to. I mean, it was all just like if it had been had really taken place. I mean, so, and the technology, how they did that, you know, whether it was something holographic, it's amazing. It's just amazing. Or if they just even if they have the power to manipulate our minds like that. I mean, I've told people time and time again that when they talk about, oh, we're going to set up, you know, the Star Wars system to defend ourselves against alien attacks, stuff, it's a joke. You could take the mental power of the Greys alone. You could have. That's why I'm a little suspicious sometimes when I hear, oh, we've captured them. I don't think you're going to capture them. You know, they might go along with you willingly, but their mental power. I mean, they could they could stand for one of them before an army and make you think that there's 100,000 of them behind them. Because if you can control someone's mind, you control everything.
Yeah, and I'm sure they could control more than one person's mind at one time, with some focused effort, I'm sure.
Yeah, and so I always thought that, you know, trying to talk about weaponry and stuff like that, it's just not going to happen. It's not only is our technology like ridiculously beyond ours, but you know, the mental power is just we can't comprehend that kind of mental power at this point in our evolution.
Does make you wonder, though. You know, like you said, they've unless of course this is something they do at every semi-intelligent bipedal race that they find, where they would splice DNA to their own. But it's kind of complimentary that they would choose us and do that with us, because obviously there are traits we possess, whether it's emotions or passion or just some of our physical characteristics, you know, our hardiness, so to speak, ability to adapt.
Yeah, because I mean, we're definitely survivors, and I mean, even like in their study of their interest in our sexuality, I mean, they're not just interested in the physical act of the reproductive act of sex. I mean, obviously that's something they probably figured out real quickly, but they're fascinated by the emotional aspect connected with that. I mean, that's just something that they're just absolutely fascinated with.
Well, yeah, and I mean the whole pheromone triggers, emotional, the whole interconnecting workings of your brains that, you know, that thank goodness we do, or the race would have died off hundreds of thousands of years ago. But I mean, you're correct. I can see where that would be fascinating to them, especially if they've lost that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's endorphins release and all this neuron activity and everything that goes on, and I think they're just, I think they've lost that a long time ago, and that's something that they're very interested in getting back. It seems like, and incorporating that into. I mean, to me, I think there is an enormous amount of hybrids out there now, and has been. They could be on 2 or 3 generations of it at this point. And so there just seems to be this. I don't think like they're purposely trying to. I mean, obviously, to my knowledge, you know, they're not killing. They always bring me back, you know, they may do all these things that's very unpleasant, psychological, damaging, and all this stuff like that, but they're not like doing all these things. So I mean, we do to animals. You know, I mean, we're killing you know, beagle dogs, you know, for cosmetics and stuff like that. So, you know, who's the real barbarians here? I mean, I'm certainly not trying to defend them, but you know, they're at least advanced enough to where that they're to that point where they're doing what they need to do out of, to me, it seems an act of desperation, possibly to even save their race. And if they create enough hybrids with this kind of mix, I mean, I think they really feel they're going to have a superior species between the two.
Sorry, we had a little dog issue. At this point, he's old and blind and deaf, and he makes it. He rules the roost.
Well, that's the way it should be.
Oh, definitely with this one. But like I said, I completely understand where you were coming with that, because I've had him since he was 3 months old. I've had him longer than Eric. I told Eric, if my dog doesn't like you, you're not coming in the house. So.
Yeah, I can totally understand.
But yeah, I all I can do is applaud you putting this out there after so long, because Gina and I, you know, we talk every once in a while, but I just found out recently that she didn't know until a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's been a little bit. Yeah, she didn't know for a couple of years.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, it's just the type of. I mean, that, you know, that shows you there. I mean, that's the kind of grand scale. I mean, if people will go to that point where they won't even tell their spouse, and for me, it was like, you know, you don't want to scare. Because that's a hard thing to deal with. I mean, it's not just hard on me, you know, it's hard on your spouse as well, because, you know, I have a lot of trouble sleeping. 2 reasons. One, I'm visited a lot by our spirit friends. But the main reason, you know, I pretty much understand that and do what I can with that. But really, when these kind of things happen to you, you never know. It's just the night, you know, they're coming back. As I've gotten older, they don't come back as often, and I'm glad about that. But, you know, different people will say, oh, you can do this to stop them, and you can do that, and I just don't go for any of it. I don't think there's any way to stop them. Well, so every night you go to bed, you know, we're like, well, this could be it again, and when they do take you, I mean, you come with the next morning when you wake up, I mean, it feels like you've been up for days. It's like you can barely function. You just feel like your body's made of lead. It takes a good day to recover from it. But it is a situation that I worry that they're going to take her, or that they probably have taken her. If anything, they monitor her as well. Emotionally, you know, sometimes I'm concerned that they may try to bring on certain events in our life so they can monitor the emotions and things like that. But I just don't want to. I wouldn't wish it on anybody to have to experience this. When I hear somebody say, "Oh, I wish I could meet an alien," and I wish you know, it's like, no, you don't. I mean, you have no idea. You know, read my book, you'll find out why. It's just not something that I would want anybody to experience, and certainly not any friend or loved one, and certainly not my wife. And so that's like, I don't want her having to live in that same kind of like apprehension, like every night. Oh man, you know, is this the night? And other people that's experienced this will know what I'm talking about. It's just, it's not a good way to live, and so you try to just keep it to yourself, and you don't want anybody else to have to suffer with it.
Well, I could see you out in the garage building your own little ship if they ever touch Gina, because I've seen you two together, and that would not be worth their time, because there would be a pain coming down on them. Yeah,
I'd be something they wouldn't want to deal with. That's for sure.
Yeah, what I find interesting is a lot of abductees that I've run across, that I've met personally, all tend to be shy, and you're really not even. I mean, the first time we met, you didn't come across as shy. Travis Walton, on the other hand, is extremely. He's like the whole other end of extreme when it comes to shyness.
Yeah, and the longer you talk to Travis, the more he opens up. But I was really shy when I was a kid, and it wasn't, I think it wasn't until I got probably in high school that I kind of started coming out of that. But then again, in my case, it's what I've done and what I do. Once again, it goes back to, like, if you're, I mean, I've played, I can't even count how many shows and stuff. I mean, so that kind of helps as well.
Right. Well, do you think that because you were so young that it didn't affect you the same way it did Travis, that maybe Travis wasn't as shy beforehand?
Yeah, it could be. I mean,
because he was like in his 20s, 30s when.
Yeah, and he just had the one experience, and I've had multiple experiences. I mean, he has only one that he told me he remembers, right. So he doesn't have any kind of conscious memory of anything else that happened to him, and he doesn't have a conscious memory of most of what happened to him at the time. And,
right.
And it's probably a good thing. I mean, him and I talked about that. He's like I purposely have never got hypnotically regressed once this all came to the surface, because I didn't want anybody saying, like they've done with Bud Hopkins, well, okay, well, he's, or anybody that does regression therapy, because I didn't want anybody to say somewhere down the road, we're like, well, that didn't really happen to you because you got regressed and you were led by the therapist or the hypnotist. They can't say that about me, because I've never been regressed concerning my abduction experiences. They all have came out on their own. I may do that to get deeper into it, but like Travis said, he got to the point where it was affecting him physically so much to relive it that they pretty much just said, look, let's just leave it where it's at, because this is something that's just not going to be good for your, it could do severe psychological damage. Mm-hmm. It can even start affecting your health. And he decided that was a good choice. Let's just leave it be. And I pretty much tell people that too. It's like, if it's affecting your life to the point where you may have developed an addiction of some sort, or depression, and I have suffered with depression off and on my whole life. But once again, you got to take control of your life here, and you have to empower yourself and realize that you can't feel guilty about what's been done to you, what they make you do, and you just have to grow stronger from it and not let it ruin the rest of your life. I mean, Travis told me, he's like, this thing's ruined my life, and I was like, well, you can't, to me, you can't think like that. You just can't, because then they win 100%. I mean, they already have robbed you of so much that if you do that, then they've robbed you of everything. So, the part that they can't take away from you is who you are, and what you how you let it affect you, and what you do in this world. And so that's what I'm trying to do with other abductees, and I'm hoping that when they read the book, that they'll see all the stuff that I've been through. And like I said, we're just scratching the surface of it tonight. But and I was honest to the point of, like, there's stuff in there that's, I mean, it's embarrassing, but I wanted to get it all out there. I felt it was important. I didn't want to just, like, a little bit here, a little bit there. I wanted to tell the whole story, and if people want to make fun of me, then that's their prerogative. But I think it's going to help a whole lot more people to understand this phenomenon, and also the people that have experienced it to, okay, if this guy came out on national television with this story, and he's coming out in all these shows and telling his story, I can at least tell my cousin or my best friend, and it starts there. And And if that person doesn't understand it, then tell somebody else, because once you start getting it out, it's the first step in healing. And everybody that's experienced this, whether they realize it or not, they need healing. But if you don't have to remember it all. I mean, and sometimes I recommend that if you don't, just leave it be. You know, I've told a couple people recently about that. I was like, they knew enough that they've had these experiences, and they were like, oh, I'm going to get regressed. And I'm like, only get regressed if you need the help. If you need the help in discovering more about this. But don't get regressed just because you want to remember it all. You know, there's a difference. And if you do that, you know, then be prepared, because you're going to be opening up, you know, it's a whole Pandora's box there. There might be some stuff in there that you're not going to want to see.
Well, you coming out and telling your story, Travis, Geraldine,
Some of the stuff John Tinney's talked about.
John Tinney, Thomas Reed, that's the other one.
Yeah.
You guys putting that out there is helping, much like the infotainment shows originally started out. It gave people an opening to start talking about paranormal then. So with you guys now, it's the ufology, but there's more of you coming out now instead of just like Travis.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see that, and you know, I think it just brings more. I just want to bring more awareness to the reality of this, and in a way where people doesn't. I don't want everybody thinking that everybody that reports a UFO or an abduction experience. Yeah, I mean, sometimes, you know, people think they're seeing UFOs, and it's obviously airplanes or all the various reasons that people give. You know, but there's a whole lot of unexplainable cases, and when you look into the history of ufology, I mean, man, even Project Blue Book, I can't remember the percentage, but it was, you know, 10 or 15% or something like that of cases that they couldn't explain. And nobody ever talks about that. They're like, oh, well, you know, they closed Project Blue Book, and all they found was all these. It's like, no, they didn't, because there's even if it was 5%, okay, well, there's 5%. Right. So if people, I just don't want. I think the perception is starting to change, and you know, the more all of us talk about our experiences, and the more people that are willing to come forward with their experiences, then the more acceptable it's going to be to the general public as a whole. And I don't want people shouldn't worry about like the religious connotations of it right now. I think that plays into it a lot, because you know, they're like, well, if there's an alien species, you know, what's their religion? Who's their God? And all that kind of stuff like that. And I actually touch on that in the book. And it's just, I just think it's important to bring to the reality of the situation right now, and let the chips fall where they may as it goes, you know. But the first thing to do is just accept it.
Well, that's basically all you can do.
Yeah.
But I mean, much like Geraldine and the Little Green Men, like we were discussing earlier, she said it's amazing after her book came out and they started this festival. The first year we had people coming up to us.
Oh yeah.
60, 80-year-old people going, "Hey, this happened to me that same night."
Or my family lived about 5 miles from there, but you have to remember this was rural Kentucky. No there wasn't even electricity in every house back then.
Yeah.
So a bright light like what was described, that was seen for miles. You know, the people were coming out saying, "No, we lived half a mile, we lived a mile, we lived 3 miles."
My grandparents lived, you know, 12 acres over, and that they told stories, but they never told anybody else, just the family.
Yeah, you'll find that a lot, and even in my case, you know, it's rural Southern Illinois. I mean, we were about 30 minutes from the Kentucky line, and since then I've found a couple that had got chased by a UFO 2 months before my event happened. 3 other sightings 2 months before my event happened. This is in rural. The town was 1,000 people, and I didn't even live in the town. I lived out in the country. So, you know, that kind of thing. And this is, you know, so there's all this stuff that happened right before my first experience. And the rural areas are like that. The people are real apprehensive about talking about it because it goes back to all this ridicule stuff again. But now, I mean, people, they're not gonna. I just think there's more of an acceptance. I mean, the media we've been exposed to it so much more now from the media, movies, and the more people that come out and talk about it, the more people that's, like you said, the more people that's going to keep coming and talking about it.
Right.
And, I mean, I remember I did down in Fayetteville, Tennessee. Brent Raines and Sandy Nichols and I did a presentation down there, and it was mostly. Mine was about spirit communication, and it was mostly ghost oriented, and so it didn't. It was like very. It's almost an Alabama line, It's a relatively small town, and I was apprehensive about doing that because I was like, man, we're going to go down there and talk about ghosts. They're going to run us out of town on a rail, And it turned out like we packed the place. I think it was like 85 people there. They turned away another 35 or 40 people, and it went great, but afterwards, this lady come up to me. She had to be pushing 80, and she started telling me right off the bat. She says, so do you do anything with UFOs or alien research or anything like that?" I said, "Yeah, I do." And she told me an abduction story, and she was from that generation that long ago. And she goes, I've kept this all these years. And she told me something that happened to her from her childhood. And so, who knows what was repressed, that she had memories that she just had kept hidden all these years.
It's true.
Right, but back in her generation, you didn't talk about it. You kept it to yourself.
Yeah. And that's what we got to break out of. And that's, one of the reasons, the points I keep trying to get across all the time, that if you have this experience, don't worry. There's somebody that's going to listen to you, and there's a lot more people that's going to believe you and listen to you than you think.
Yep.
That's right. Well, Bret, I hate to do this, but we are getting kind of near the end. I got to make this fit on YouTube.
That's been fun.
Where can people find you?
Well, I am getting a web page put up that it's going to be childrenofthegrays.com. I'm in the process of that right now. But right now we're just pretty much on Facebook. We still are Halo Paranormal for everything else we're doing, Gina and I. The Facebook.com/Halo Paranormal. But I've recently set up the Children of the Grays page on Facebook. And I welcome anybody that's interested in this and wants to learn more and share with other people the same, to come and like that page. We just got it started about a week ago. And that's just the Facebook.com/Children of the Grays. So, and just me, I've got my own Facebook page as well. If you have anything you want to talk to me about, feel free to contact me. The book's Children of the Grays. It's on Amazon. The Kindle version came out. I've priced it real reasonable. Just to encourage people to pick it up and to learn more about it. I'm getting rave reviews on it so far, so it does seem to be keeping interest and helping a lot of people, and that's what I want to do.
That's awesome. Well, we wouldn't expect any less from you, Bret.
That's right.
I mean, you wouldn't have been inducted into the Las Vegas Rock and Roll Hall of Fame if that wasn't how you were.
Yeah. Speaking of rockers, Sammy Hagar, which you well-known rocker, he's written about his abduction experience in his last book. Didn't write a whole book about it, but he's had experience.
He couldn't drive 55.
Well, not. Yeah, I don't think he'd be driving at all in that case. But
yeah.
It's it's like I said, it's widespread. I mean, it goes. There's some people I've met here in Nashville, a famous country music personality. I'll just leave it at that. That is afraid to come public, but also same experiences.
Yeah. We gotta get out of here.
We do. Send love to your wife. I know she's over there somewhere. Gina.
Yeah, she's to your right, but we just don't know how far.
I think she's in the other room somewhere.
But like I said earlier, don't go anywhere. I want to talk to you for just a little bit when we get off air.
All right.
Coming Monday night
on Just Saying, we have author Jackie Carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
And next Friday, we have paranormal investigator Jody Foch.
And next Thursday, I need you to be sure and tune in because I'm going to be talking with a very good friend of ours, Mr. Bill Connolly, Paranormal,
Oh, yeah.
from the northern regions of Canada. He's got some exciting stuff going on, so don't miss next week. Live shows every night of the week. Folks, we are up to 15 live shows during the week, so for your live
And we are
knowledgeable entertainment.
We are the only network with that many.
That's right. Live video feeds, come join us. And stick around if you like Kim and I. Come back at midnight Eastern for the Alchemical Artisans Hour. We are the guests on the show. And with that, we're out of here.
Later.
Be safe.